And joining me now is President Trump's Chief of Staff, Reince Priebus. Mr. Priebus, welcome back to the show, sir.
Good morning, Chuck. Thanks for having me.
Good to have you here. Look, the President did tweet this on Friday. No matter how much I accomplished during the ridiculous standard of the first 100 days, it has been a lot, parentheses, including SC, I assume he means Supreme Court, media will kill. And maybe that'll be your response to my question here. But just before the election, I want to put up, he made these legislative promises in the first 100 days: tax reform, offshoring of jobs, infrastructure, school choice, health care, child care, immigration, ethics reform, more funding for the military, and dealing with crime and drugs. All of them were supposed to be legislative action that was announced, not necessarily the expectation any of it be passed, but only one of those legislative priorities has even come close to a vote: health care. Why does he say it's a ridiculous standard and yet promise all this action before day 100?
All right, so let me try to unpack that, Chuck. I mean, first of all, if you look at the promises he made on immigration, you have border crossings down by 70%. You look at TPP, one of the first executive orders the president signed was getting out of TPP. You look at ethics, that was one of the bullet points you had. Every employee of the West Wing signed an ethics pledge that said you're not going to lobby for 5 years after you leave this place, and you're never going to lobby for a foreign country. Look at Neil Gorsuch, first 100 days. A Supreme Court justice is sworn in, first time since 1881. And if you just give me 1 minute, and I won't drone on, but this idea about major legislation not being passed within the first 100 days. Barack Obama had a pre-baked stimulus package that started in October of the election year, which was passed in February. It was pre-baked. George Bush didn't get any major legislation until June. Clinton, August 10th. Bush 41, a year and a half later. Reagan, August 13th. Carter, 658 days after he took office. Nixon, 1 year. Johnson, 225 days. Here's the deal. The president signed over 28 bills already. Health care may happen next week. It may not. We're hopeful it will. As far as borders, you said the military. We have right now in the CR negotiating one of the biggest increases in military spending in decades. So he is fulfilling his promises and doing it at breakneck speed.
All right, but let me give you one standard that really is, I would think, potentially troubling. So far, for Senate confirmation, just filling the jobs, filling the empty positions in government, he's only nominated 45 people. Only 22 of them have been confirmed. 2 have failed. At this same point in time, George W. Bush had 85 nominations, H.W. Bush 95, Obama 190, Clinton 176. What is taking so long for you guys to just fill the political appointments? You are way down here.
Actually not. Let me clear this up. First of all, Chuck Schumer and the Democrats have done something that even many Democrats and even Democrat-leading pundits have said is inexcusable, which is to hold up one nominee after the next to fill secretary positions. Wait a second.
But Reince, no.
Wait, I'm going to get to that.
Nominated.
Let me get to
it. Nominated them.
Okay, let me get to it.
Slow down. If you had 190 nominated.
Let me finish. I know what the question is. Let me finish. Look, even on David Shulkin, who passed 100-0 in the Senate, Schumer still took up to 30 hours of debate. I'll get to that. We have hundreds of people in the queue. Here's what happens when you slow down these nominations. When you slow down the nominations, you can't actually clear someone for a nomination into the Senate. So when you talk about who we have for assistants to secretary, let's just throw assistants to secretary at HUD or the State Department. Those people have been chosen. However, when you choose one of those people, the process is you have to send that person to OGE clearance, with Office of Government Ethics clearance, and they have to get an FBI background check. You can't get the clearance for 30 or 40 days after you choose the person. So those people are in queue, and when they get the clearance from OGE, they get sent to the Senate.
But you acknowledge you're behind.
But we're behind, but because of historical, unbelievable obstruction from U.S. senators that are acting
I don't want to get stuck on this question, but I don't understand how the Democrats have anything to do with who you nominate.
Because the president has said, you look at a guy like Rex Tillerson, the president has said that the Secretary of State's going to have direct authority over the people that he chooses to fill the positions within the Department of State. Well, if Rex Tillerson gets picked, he gets submitted back in December, he doesn't get confirmed until later in the year, or for example, we've got a Secretary of Commerce that was that was chosen in November, not confirmed until February, that person is going to take the time to choose who his undersecretaries are. Those undersecretaries that are chosen need 30 days to go through clearance.
I got to move on because...
No, but this is very easy.
It doesn't make a lot of sense.
How doesn't it make sense that when you don't have a nominee...
prepared to, that you don't have... These folks aren't preparing for their own staff to who they're going to decide to bring into office. But let me move on here.
If you don't have a nominee...
We've got to keep the government open. Let me ask you about the government shutdown, run out of money if a bill isn't passed by the end of the week. Your budget director said you want to have a down payment on the border wall in that government funding bill. If you don't get it, will the president veto the government funding bill?
Well, I mean, we've already seen progress in regard to getting money for border security within the CR. So I'm pretty confident that we're going to get something that's satisfactory to the president in regard to border security within the current negotiation.
It may not be the wall itself.
It'll be enough in the negotiation for us to move forward with either the construction or the planning, or enough for us to move forward through the end of September to get going on the border wall and border security in regard to border patrol, ICE.
Speaker Ryan has signed off on this, saying it's not going to gum up getting this funding bill done.
No, I mean, we expect the priorities of the president to be reflective in the CR. So we expect a massive increase in military spending. We expect money for border security in this bill. And it ought to be, because the president won overwhelmingly, and everyone understands that the border wall was part of it.
Are you okay if the money's not designated specifically for the border wall? In fact, if the money's designated for border security but not for the border wall, you'll sign that bill?
I think that as long as the president's priorities are adequately reflected in the CR and allows us to get moving with an increase in military spending and a rebuilding of our military, as he promised in one of your bullet points, and there's enough as far as flexibility for the border wall and border security, I think we'll be okay with that. But we're still negotiating this weekend with appropriators in the House and the Senate.
Health care, do you have to have a vote this week, or are you comfortable if Speaker Ryan says, hey, I need more time to find the votes? I
would like to have a vote this week, and I think the leadership knows that we'd like to have a vote this week, but it's not, you know, on Monday we're still going to be here working for the American people. So whether health care repeal and replace comes on Friday or Saturday or on Monday, in the grand scheme of things, you know, it's a marathon, not a sprint. So we're hopeful for this week, but again, it's not something that has to happen in order to define our success.
Has the president taken sides in the French election? Is he unofficially hoping Marine Le Pen gets into the runoff? No,
not at all. I mean, not at all. He is going to support whoever the winner is. We've got a long-term relationship that's historical with the French people and the French government. No matter who wins, that relationship is going to continue.
He is not. So his tweet should not be interpreted as him showing preference for Le Pen?
No, not at all. I think it might be, he may have some opinions as far as who he thinks might win, but he certainly doesn't have a preference.
And finally, on the Mar-a-Lago.
Other than a right-of-center person that believes in free markets.
Can I ask you this? It costs $200,000 to be a member of Mar-a-Lago, $300,000 to be a member of Bedminster. Shouldn't the American people know about anybody that bought a membership to one of those two clubs where they could get access to you when you're with the president on one of these working trips, or the president himself? Shouldn't the American public know who those people are if they have bought memberships since the president took office?
No, I don't think it's any. I mean, this is a private business. It's a private organization. It's a private club. I don't think that has anything to do with it.
So if somebody decides this is the best way to get access to you or the president, there's nothing the American people can do about it?
One thing that the American people, I think, know about President Trump is that he's the boss. And, you know, people, if you saw in the New York Times article today, they listed out 20 different people that have all this access. Some of these folks the president doesn't even talk to. But the president talks to a lot of people. That doesn't change his ultimate views. If you go back on YouTube and you look at Donald Trump talking about trade in the 1980s and the 1990s, this is the same person today. He's no different. So while a lot of people like to talk about and argue about who's talking to President Trump and who's influencing him to make decisions, it's Donald Trump. It's his agenda. It's always been his agenda, and it always will be his agenda. And over time, people are going to see that he's a guy that's going to deliver to the American people, putting America first, and making the future better for everyone across the country.
Reince Priebus, I'm going to leave it there.
You bet.
I know you're going to have a busy week ahead of you. Government's going to stay open?
I believe it will.
All right. We'll hold you to it. Thank you, sir.